The stagecoach rattled violently as it hit another rut in the dusty road, jerking Rebecca Morgan awake from her fitful sleep. The late afternoon sun slanted through the small window, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air of the cramped cabin. Her letter of arrangement, now crumpled and worn from countless readings, peeked from her reticule, a constant reminder of the uncertain future that awaited her in Silvercreek, Colorado. "Not much longer now, miss," the elderly woman across from her said kindly, noticing Rebecca's anxious glance out the window. "Silvercreek's just over that ridge. You visitin' family?" Rebecca smoothed her travel-wrinkled skirt and tried to smile. "No, madam, I'm to be married." The woman's eyebrows rose. "Ah, one of the mail-order brides. Who's the lucky fella, Mr. Howard Matthews?" The name felt foreign on her tongue, a stranger's name, a man she would pledge her life to, yet had never laid eyes upon. Matthews. "Don't recall any Matthews in Silvercreek," the woman frowned. Rebecca's stomach knotted tighter. After her father's death 6 months ago in Boston, leaving nothing but debts and a tarnished family name, this arrangement had seemed her only option. The advertisement had promised a respectable life with a prosperous cattle rancher. Security, something she desperately needed after watching everything she had known crumble away. The stagecoach crested the hill, and Silvercreek came into view, a small cluster of wooden buildings nestled in a valley between towering mountains. It was 1879, and the West was still wild enough to make a Boston socialite's heart quicken with trepidation. "Here we are, ladies and gentlemen." "Silvercreek," the driver called down as the horses slowed. Rebecca gathered her meager belongings, one trunk and a carpet bag, and stepped down into the dusty main street. The air smelled of pine, dust, and livestock, so different from Boston's coal smoke and sea breeze. She looked around uncertainly. Mr. Matthews had promised to meet her, but no one approached. "You look lost, miss," a deep voice said behind her. Rebecca turned to find a tall man watching her with intense blue eyes. His face was tanned from the sun, stubbled with several days' growth, and he wore a battered cowboy hat pulled low. Unlike the proper gentleman of Boston, his shirt sleeves were rolled up to reveal strong forearms, and he wore no jacket despite the cooling afternoon air. "I'm looking for Mr. Howard Matthews," she said, straightening her spine and lifting her chin the way her mother had taught her. Always appear confident, even when terrified. Something flickered across the man's face, surprise or perhaps amusement. "And you would be Miss Rebecca Morgan, I presume?" "Yes," she answered, relief flooding her. "Are you a friend of Mr. Matthews? Is he delayed?" The man's mouth curved into a half smile. "You could say I know him better than most." He removed his hat, revealing thick sandy hair that curled slightly at the ends. "I'm Samuel Tucker, town sheriff and—" He paused, "the man who's going to tell you that Howard Matthews doesn't exist." Rebecca felt the blood drain from her face. "I don't understand." Samuel Tucker's expression softened. "Someone's played a cruel joke on you, Miss Morgan. There's no Howard Matthews in Silvercreek, never has been." The ground seemed to shift beneath Rebecca's feet. No Howard Matthews, but the letters, the arrangements, the money her father's solicitor had sent. "But that's impossible," she whispered. "We've corresponded for months. He sent for me. He paid my passage." Sheriff Tucker gently took her elbow and guided her toward the wooden sidewalk as a wagon rumbled past. "Miss Morgan, I believe you've been swindled. It happens sometimes, con men placing advertisements, collecting money from desperate women back east." "I'm not desperate," Rebecca said automatically, then flushed. Of course she was. Why else would she have agreed to marry a stranger in a town she'd never heard of? "Of course not," he said kindly. "Let's get you somewhere to sit down. The journey must have been exhausting." He led her toward a building with a sign reading Silver Dollar Hotel and Restaurant. Rebecca walked numbly beside him, her mind racing. If there was no Howard Matthews, there was no marriage, no home, no security. And she was now stranded in a strange town with barely $20 to her name. "Sarah," Sheriff Tucker called to a plump, friendly-faced woman behind the counter. "This is Miss Morgan. She needs a room and some hot food." "Of course, Sam," Sarah said, her eyes curious but kind as they swept over Rebecca's travel-worn appearance. "Room 3's open. Dinner's beef stew tonight." "Put it on my account," Sheriff Tucker said quietly. I can pay my own way, Rebecca protested, though in truth she couldn't for long. Consider it the town's hospitality, he replied. We'll sort everything out tomorrow. For now, rest and eat. Rebecca wanted to argue, but exhaustion overwhelmed her. Thank you, Sheriff. Sam, he corrected with that same half-smile. Everyone calls me Sam. Sam, she repeated softly. Thank you. In her small but clean room, Rebecca finally allowed tears to fall. Everything she'd feared had come to pass. She was alone, penniless, and had nowhere to go. Boston was an impossible distance away, and even if she could return, what awaited her there but scandal and poverty? She pulled out the letters signed Howard Matthews and read them again, searching for clues. They were well-written, intelligent, detailed about life on his cattle ranch. How could they be fabrications? And who would go to such elaborate lengths to lure her here? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Miss Morgan, dinner's ready whenever you are, Sarah's voice called. Rebecca splashed cold water on her face, pinched her cheeks for color, and went downstairs. The dining room was half full, and she felt eyes turned toward her, a stranger and a woman alone. She stiffened her spine and took a seat at a small corner table. Sam Tucker entered a few minutes later, now wearing a proper jacket though still looking rugged compared to Boston men. He spotted her and, after a moment's hesitation, approached. Mind if I join you? I'd like to discuss your situation. Rebecca gestured to the empty chair. Please. Sarah brought steaming bowls of stew and fresh bread. The food smelled wonderful, and Rebecca realized she was famished. I've been thinking, Sam said after they'd eaten in silence for a moment. Those letters you received, might I see them? Perhaps there's something that could identify who sent them. Rebecca hesitated, then reached into her pocket and handed him the folded papers. They're rather personal. Sam's eyes crinkled. I'll try to be discreet. He read through them quickly, his expression growing increasingly troubled. When he finished, he looked up with a strange intensity. Miss Morgan, these descriptions of Silvercreek, the mountains to the west with the peculiar formation like a sleeping bear, the creek that runs red after spring rains because of the clay, they're accurate. Whoever wrote these has been here. Then Howard Matthews might be real, just using another name. Hope flickered. Sam shook his head. I know everyone in this town and the surrounding ranches. No one matches the description given here. He tapped the paper. But there's something else that troubles me. These letters mention specific details about my work as sheriff. Rebecca frowned. What do you mean? This passage about maintaining order during the mining dispute last fall, and this one about escorting the stage carrying bank money during the winter storms. Those are things I did. A chill ran through Rebecca. Are you suggesting? I'm not sure what I'm suggesting, Sam said carefully, but someone used real events from Silvercreek, many involving me, to create this fictional rancher. He looked troubled. The question is why? Rebecca set down her spoon, appetite gone. What am I to do now, Sheriff? I have no money to return east and nothing to return to even if I could. Sam studied her face for a long moment. Miss Morgan, Silvercreek needs a schoolteacher. Our last one left to get married 2 months ago. The position comes with a small house behind the schoolhouse. It's not much, but it would give you time to decide your next steps. A schoolteacher, Rebecca blinked. I've never taught before. Were you educated? Yes, at Miss Harrington's Academy for Young Ladies in Boston. But that's more education than most folks around here. The children need someone who can teach them reading, writing, arithmetic, and some history. Can you do that? Rebecca considered it. She had always loved learning, had excelled in her studies, and what other options did she have? Yes, she said with growing confidence. Yes, I believe I can. Sam smiled, a full smile this time that transformed his face and made something flutter in Rebecca's chest. Good, I'll introduce you to the town council tomorrow. Until then, get some rest. You're safe here. That night, Rebecca lay awake in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the sounds of the western night so different from Boston's. A piano played somewhere down the street. Men's laughter occasionally erupted from what must be the saloon. And beneath it all, the profound silence of open spaces that surrounded the small town. She thought of Sheriff Sam Tucker with his direct blue gaze and straightforward manner. He'd swooped in to help her without hesitation, offering a solution where there seemed to be none. There was something about him that felt trustworthy, a quality Rebecca had learned was rare, but questions still troubled her. Who had pretended to be Howard Matthews, and why lure her specifically to Silvercreek? She drifted off to sleep with no answers, only the strange sense that her life had veered into uncharted territory, dangerous, perhaps, but somehow thrilling too. The next morning, Rebecca awoke to bright sunshine streaming through the thin curtains. After dressing in her best remaining gown, a dark blue that had once been fashionable in Boston, she ventured downstairs to find Sam waiting. "Good morning," he greeted her. "I've arranged for you to meet with Mayor Billings and Reverend Porter at 10. They handle school matters." "Thank you." Rebecca accepted the cup of coffee Sarah offered. "Sheriff Sam, do you have any theories about who might have sent those letters?" His expression darkened. "I've been asking myself the same question all night. The details in those letters, they're things someone close to me would know." "An enemy, perhaps, maybe." He didn't sound convinced. "Or someone with an unusual interest in you." Rebecca nearly choked on her coffee. "In me, but no one here knows me. That's what we need to find out." Sam glanced at the clock on the wall. "We should head over to the mayor's office. I can show you the schoolhouse afterward." The meeting went surprisingly well. Mayor Billings, a rotund man with an impressive mustache, was mainly concerned that Rebecca understood the position, paid only $40 a month plus the small house. "It's not much for an educated Boston lady," he said doubtfully. "It's more than enough, Mr. Mayor," Rebecca assured him. "I'm grateful for the opportunity." Reverend Porter seemed more interested in her moral character, asking pointed questions about her church attendance and beliefs. Rebecca answered carefully, aware that her family's Unitarian leanings might not sit well in a frontier town. "The children need firm guidance," the Reverend emphasized, "especially with the diverse elements in our community." "I believe all children deserve education, Reverend," Rebecca replied evenly. Sam, who had been quietly observing, suddenly spoke up. "Miss Morgan comes highly recommended, gentlemen. I've seen her credentials." This was a complete fabrication, but Rebecca managed not to show her surprise. "Well then," Mayor Billings said, "school was set to start next Monday. Can you be ready by then, Miss Morgan?" "Yes, sir," Rebecca said with more confidence than she felt. After the meeting, Sam walked her to the schoolhouse, a simple one-room building with rows of benches and a small blackboard. Behind it stood a tiny cottage, just 2 rooms, a main living area with a small kitchen and a bedroom. "It's not what you're used to," Sam said, watching her face carefully. Rebecca looked around at the spare furnishings: a bed, a table with 2 chairs, a small bookshelf, and a cook stove. It was indeed nothing like her family's grand Boston home, but it was clean, sturdy, and most importantly, hers. "It's perfect," she said softly. Sam seemed relieved. "Sarah will help you get settled. The school board keeps a small fund for supplies. And if you need anything, you'll be the first person I ask," Rebecca finished with a smile. "You've already done so much, Sheriff. I don't know how to thank you." "Just doing my job," he replied, but his eyes lingered on her face a moment longer than necessary. "I'll continue looking into your situation. Someone in this town knows something." After he left, Rebecca explored her new home more thoroughly. The previous teacher had left some books and teaching materials. She found a primer, a geography text, and a worn Bible. She would need to take inventory and determine what else was required before Monday. Sarah arrived later with linens, some basic food supplies, and town gossip. "Most folks are curious about you," she admitted as she helped Rebecca make up the bed. "We don't get many Eastern ladies here, especially ones as fine-looking as yourself." "I'm hardly fine looking after that journey," Rebecca laughed, touching her hair self-consciously. "Nonsense. Half the men in town were talking about the pretty new schoolteacher before you'd even accepted the position." Sarah winked. "Including our sheriff, I'd wager." Rebecca felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Don't be ridiculous. He's merely being kind to a stranger in trouble." "Sam Tucker is a good man," Sarah said more seriously. "Been sheriff here 5 years now. Turned down opportunities in bigger towns to stay. Folks trust him. He seems very capable," Rebecca said carefully. Sarah gave her a knowing look. "Well, I should warn you, Sam's considered quite a catch around here. Clara Wilson at the dress shop has been trying to get his attention for years. And Widow Jenkins makes him a pie every Sunday. Rebecca laughed. They needn't worry about competition from me. I've had quite enough of romantic entanglements. But later that evening, alone in her new home, Rebecca found herself thinking about Sam's blue eyes and the way they crinkled at the corners when he smiled. There was something compelling about him, a steadiness she found herself drawn to despite her determination to remain independent. She pushed the thoughts away and focused on preparing for her first day of teaching. Whatever mystery had brought her to Silvercreek, she was determined to make the best of it. The following days passed in a blur as Rebecca prepared the schoolhouse, met parents and children, and settled into the rhythms of the small town. She discovered that Silvercreek, despite its size, was more diverse than she'd expected. Many of the children came from mining families, Irish, German, a few Chinese. Others were from ranching families that had been in the area for generations. She saw Sam occasionally around town, always with a tip of his hat and a friendly word, but he seemed busy with his duties. She told herself the small pang of disappointment she felt was merely because she was eager for news about her investigation. On Sunday, Rebecca attended service at Reverend Porter's church, conscious of curious eyes upon her. After the service, several mothers approached to introduce themselves and their children. "We're so pleased to have a proper educated lady teaching our young ones, Mrs. Thompson said, her twin boys fidgeting beside her. "I'm looking forward to meeting everyone tomorrow," Rebecca replied warmly. As the crowd dispersed, Sam appeared at her side. "Mind if I walk you home, Miss Morgan? I'd be delighted, Sheriff." They strolled along the main street, Rebecca nodding greetings to people she'd met over the past few days. "You seem to be settling in well," Sam observed. "Everyone has been kind, though I'm quite nervous about tomorrow." "You'll do fine," he assured her. Most of these children have been learning from whoever was available. Having a dedicated teacher will be a luxury. They reached her small cottage and Rebecca hesitated at the door. "Would you like to come in for coffee? I've been practicing with the stove." Sam's smile warmed his eyes. "I'd like that." Inside, Rebecca busied herself with the coffee pot while Sam examined the classroom materials she'd spread across the table. "You've been working hard," he commented. "I want to be prepared." She set 2 cups on the table and sat across from him. "Have you discovered anything about Howard Matthews?" Sam's expression grew serious. "Not exactly, but I've been thinking about who might have access to the details in those letters. It's a small list, mainly people I work closely with." "And," Rebecca prompted when he paused. "And I found something strange." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded paper. "This is a letter I wrote to my sister in Denver last year. Notice anything about the handwriting?" Rebecca examined it, then pulled out one of Howard's letters for comparison. The styles were similar, not identical, but with distinct similarities in how certain letters were formed. "Someone copied your handwriting?" she asked, alarmed. "Or used it as a model," Sam said grimly. "Rebecca, I think whoever wrote to you was trying to impersonate me, or at least someone very like me." Rebecca's hand trembled slightly as she set down her cup. "But why? Why create this elaborate deception? I don't know yet, but I'm more convinced than ever it has something to do with me." His face softened. "I'm sorry you were caught in whatever this is." "Don't apologize," Rebecca said firmly. "If not for this deception, I would never have come west, and despite everything, I'm beginning to think that would have been a shame." Their eyes met across the table and something electric passed between them. Sam cleared his throat and stood up. "I should let you finish preparing for tomorrow. Good luck with your first day, though I doubt you'll need it." At the door, he turned back. "Be careful, Rebecca. Until we know who's behind this and why, please stay alert." "I will," she promised. That night, Rebecca struggled to sleep, her mind filled with thoughts of the mysterious letters and Sam's concerned blue eyes. What had she stumbled into? And why did the danger seem almost secondary to the growing warmth she felt whenever Sheriff Tucker was near? Rebecca's first day as Silvercreek's schoolteacher dawned bright and clear. She dressed carefully in a high-necked blue shirtwaist and dark skirt, pinning her hair in a simple but neat style. As she walked the short distance to the schoolhouse, children began arriving, some shyly hanging back, others boldly approaching to introduce themselves. By 8 o'clock, 22 students ranging from 6 to 16 years old were seated on the benches, watching her with varying degrees of curiosity, apprehension, and in a few cases, mischief. "Good morning," Rebecca began, willing her voice not to shake. "I am Miss Morgan, your new teacher. I've come all the way from Boston to teach in Silvercreek, and I'm very pleased to meet each of you." A small boy in the front raised his hand immediately. "Is Boston near California?" Rebecca smiled. Geography would clearly be important. "No, Boston is on the opposite coast, facing the Atlantic Ocean instead of the Pacific. It's nearly 3,000 miles from here." "Why'd you come so far?" asked an older girl with braided blonde hair. Rebecca hesitated, unsure how to answer. "I was looking for a new beginning," she said finally. Sometimes life takes unexpected turns. This seemed to satisfy the children, and Rebecca launched into assessing their knowledge levels. She discovered that while some could barely recognize letters, others were quite advanced. Creating lessons to accommodate such diverse needs would be challenging. By midday, Rebecca's voice was growing hoarse, but she felt a spark of excitement. These children were eager to learn, and she was determined to teach them well. As the children ate their packed lunches outside, Rebecca noticed a man on horseback watching from across the street. He was too far away to see clearly, but something about his stillness made her uneasy. When she looked again a moment later, he was gone. The afternoon passed quickly, and Rebecca dismissed the children at 3 o'clock, reminding them to bring their reading primers the next day. As the last child left, she sank into her chair, exhausted but satisfied. A knock at the open door made her look up. Sam stood there, hat in hand. "How was your first day, Miss Morgan?" "Challenging but wonderful," she said with a genuine smile. "These children are bright and curious. They're lucky to have you." He stepped inside, glancing around the classroom. "I wanted to check on you. Any unusual visitors or incidents?" Rebecca hesitated, then told him about the man watching the school. "It was probably nothing," she added. "Just a parent curious about the new teacher." Sam frowned. "Perhaps, still I don't like it. I'll walk you home and check around the area." As they walked the short distance to her cottage, Rebecca felt unexpectedly comfortable in Sam's presence. For a man who wore a gun and badge, he had a gentle quality that put her at ease. "Will you join me for supper?" she asked impulsively as they reached her door. "Sarah brought me a chicken pie that's far too much for one person." Sam's smile lit his entire face. "I'd be honored." Inside, Rebecca bustled around the small kitchen area, heating the pie and brewing fresh coffee. Sam removed his gun belt and hat, setting them carefully on a side table. "Tell me about Boston," he said as they sat down to eat. "What was your life like there?" Rebecca cut into the golden crust, releasing fragrant steam. "My father was a merchant textiles mainly. We lived in a fine house on Beacon Hill. My mother died when I was 12, so I ran the household after that." "That's a lot of responsibility for a young girl," Sam observed. Rebecca shrugged. "It was expected. I attended Miss Harrington's academy during the day and managed the servants and social calendar in the evenings." She paused, uncertain how much to reveal. "Everything changed when father died. There were financial difficulties." "So you answered an advertisement for a mail-order bride," Sam finished softly. "That took courage, or desperation," Rebecca said with a wry smile. "The creditors were circling, and Boston society has little use for penniless spinsters." "You're hardly a spinster," Sam said, his eyes warm as they met hers across the table. Rebecca felt heat rise to her cheeks and quickly changed the subject. "What about you? Have you always lived in Silvercreek?" "No, I grew up in Missouri. Came west after the war, too many bad memories back home. I was a ranch hand for a few years, then deputy in a mining town north of here. When the sheriff position opened in Silvercreek 5 years ago, I took it." "You never married?" Rebecca asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. Sam didn't seem to mind. "Nearly did once. She decided a lawman's wife faced too many uncertain nights wondering if her husband would come home." His expression grew distant. She wasn't wrong. "It must be difficult, facing danger for people you barely know. Most folks here aren't strangers anymore. That's the thing about small towns, they become family." He studied her face. "You might find the same if you stay." "If I stay," Rebecca repeated softly. Despite the circumstances that had brought her here, she was beginning to feel a connection to Silvercreek and its people. As they finished the meal, Sam helped her clear the dishes, something Rebecca had never seen a man do in Boston. "Thank you for dinner," he said at the door. "Best meal I've had in months." "It was Sarah's cooking, not mine," Rebecca laughed. "The company made it special," Sam replied, his voice lower. For a moment, Rebecca thought he might move closer, but instead he reached for his hat. "I'll keep looking into our mystery. And I'll check on you tomorrow." "I'd like that," Rebecca said, surprised at how much she meant it. After he left, Rebecca prepared for the next day's lessons, but her mind kept drifting to Sam's kind eyes and the strange circumstances that had brought her to his town. Whatever deception had been practiced, she couldn't bring herself to regret it entirely, not when it had led her here, to a place where she was needed, and to a man who made her feel both safe and strangely exhilarated. The next few weeks established a rhythm to Rebecca's new life. Her days were filled with teaching, her evenings with lesson preparation, and gradually deepening friendships with townspeople like Sarah and Clara Wilson from the dress shop. Sam stopped by regularly, sometimes just to walk her home from school, other times staying for coffee or bringing news from his investigation. One evening in early October, Rebecca was grading arithmetic exercises when a knock came at her door. Expecting Sam, she opened it with a smile that quickly faded when she saw Mayor Billings standing there instead, looking uncomfortable. "Mayor Billings, this is a surprise. May I come in, Miss Morgan? There's a matter we need to discuss." Puzzled, Rebecca ushered him inside. The mayor declined her offer of coffee and remained standing, hat in hand. "Miss Morgan, a letter arrived for you today at my office." He withdrew an envelope from his jacket. "It's from Boston, from a Mr. Hargrove who identifies himself as your father's solicitor." Rebecca's stomach clenched. Hargrove had been handling her father's estate, what little remained of it. "Yes, I know Mr. Hargrove." The mayor shifted uncomfortably. "The letter was addressed to my attention first, with instructions to deliver it to you. Mr. Hargrove expressed concern about your situation." Rebecca took the envelope with trembling fingers. "I don't understand." "He indicates that you left Boston under a cloud of scandal, Miss Morgan. Something about misappropriated funds and a broken engagement." Rebecca's face burned with humiliation. I'm not here to judge," Mayor Billings interrupted, raising a placating hand. "But as mayor, I must consider the town's welfare, including who educates our children." "Are you dismissing me?" Rebecca asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The mayor looked pained. "Not at present. The children are thriving under your instruction, but I felt it necessary to address these allegations directly. My father made some unwise investments before his death," Rebecca said carefully. "The broken engagement was mutual once my financial circumstances changed. I assure you, Mayor Billings, I have never misappropriated funds or acted dishonorably." The mayor studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "I believe you, Miss Morgan, but others might question your position if this becomes known." "By others, you mean Reverend Porter," Rebecca guessed shrewdly. The mayor's uncomfortable expression confirmed her suspicion. "The Reverend has significant influence in matters concerning the school." "I understand." Rebecca straightened her spine. "Thank you for bringing this to me directly." After the mayor left, Rebecca tore open the letter with shaking hands. Hargrove's missive was brief but devastating. He reported that rumors were circulating in Boston that she had fled with family funds to escape creditors. He urged her to return and face the allegations, warning that her reputation would be irreparably damaged otherwise. Rebecca sank into a chair, letter clutched in her hand. How had this happened? Who would spread such lies? And how long before everyone in Silvercreek heard them? A second knock startled her. She hastily wiped her eyes before opening the door to find Sam standing there, his expression concerned. "I just saw Billings leaving. Is everything all right?" Rebecca hesitated, then handed him the letter. "Apparently I'm now a thief as well as a jilted mail order bride." Sam read quickly, his frown deepening. "These are lies." "Yes, but who would know to send them here? First the false letters luring me to Silvercreek, now this." Fresh tears threatened. "Someone is determined to ruin me." Sam's jaw tightened. "Or to control you." He met her eyes. Rebecca, I think these events are connected. Someone wanted you here, away from Boston, but vulnerable. But why? I'm still working on that. Sam placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Don't worry about the town gossip. Most folks here judge people by their actions, not rumors. Reverend Porter may not be so generous, Rebecca said bleakly. Leave Porter to me. Sam's voice held a steely note. No one's pushing you out of Silvercreek while I'm sheriff. His protective declaration warmed something inside Rebecca. Thank you, she said softly. Sam's hand moved from her shoulder to her cheek, his touch light. You're not alone in this. Whatever's happening, we'll face it together. Rebecca was acutely aware of his closeness, the scent of leather and pine that seemed to cling to him. For a breathless moment, she thought he might kiss her and realized with startling clarity that she wanted him to. Instead, he stepped back. Lock your door tonight. I'll check the area before turning in. After he left, Rebecca pressed her fingers to her cheek where his touch lingered. Despite the troubling letter, she felt strangely buoyant. Sam believed in her. Whatever was happening, they would indeed face it together. The next morning, Rebecca arrived at the schoolhouse early, determined not to let Hargrove's letter disrupt her teaching. She was arranging books when she heard the door open behind her. Good morning, she began, turning with a smile that froze when she saw not a student but a well-dressed man in his 40s standing in the doorway. Rebecca, he said, his cultured voice bringing Boston rushing back. What a charming little establishment you've found, Richard. Rebecca stared in disbelief at her former fiancé. What are you doing in Silvercreek? Richard Blackwood stepped into the schoolhouse, removing his expensive hat. His once familiar face held none of the warmth she remembered, only a calculating assessment that made her skin crawl. I've come to bring you home, of course. This frontier adventure has gone on long enough. Rebecca's shock gave way to anger. This isn't an adventure, Richard. It's my life now. And we both know there's nothing for me in Boston. On the contrary, he said smoothly, your father's debts have been resolved. The house on Beacon Hill awaits your return, as does our engagement. Rebecca gaped at him. Our engagement ended when you broke it off after father died. A regrettable misunderstanding. Richard moved closer. I've explained everything to your father's solicitor. The announcement of our reconciliation will appear in next week's society pages. You're insane, Rebecca whispered, backing away. I'm not going anywhere with you. Our engagement is over. It has been for months. Richard's pleasant expression hardened. Don't be difficult, Rebecca. You have no future in this backwater town. Come home where you belong. I believe the lady has made her position clear. A steely voice interrupted from the doorway. Sam stood there, one hand resting casually on his gun belt, his eyes cold as they assessed Richard. This is a private conversation, Richard said dismissively. Not in my town, it isn't. Sam stepped inside. Especially not when it involves harassing our schoolteacher. Richard's eyes narrowed. And you are, Sheriff Samuel Tucker, and you're trespassing on school property before hours. Rebecca found her voice. Richard was just leaving, Sheriff. Richard's gaze shifted between them, calculation evident in his expression. I see I've come at an inopportune time. We'll continue this discussion later, Rebecca. There's nothing to discuss, she said firmly. With a tight smile, Richard replaced his hat. We'll see. He nodded curtly to Sam. Sheriff. After he left, Rebecca released a shuddering breath. How did you know to come? Sarah saw him get off the morning stage and ask directions to the school. She thought his manner seemed odd, so she found me. Sam studied her face. Former fiancé, Rebecca corrected. He broke our engagement when my father died and our financial situation was revealed. Now he claims to want me back. Do you think he's connected to the letters, both the ones that brought you here and Hargrove's accusations? Rebecca considered it. He could have access to my father's solicitor, but why go to such lengths? And how would he know anything about Silvercreek or you? That's what bothers me, Sam said. The details in those letters were too specific. Blackwood would need a local connection. The sound of children's voices approaching interrupted their conversation. We'll talk more later, Sam promised. Be careful around Blackwood, something doesn't add up. Throughout the day, Rebecca struggled to focus on teaching, her mind returning repeatedly to Richard's unexpected appearance. When school ended, she was relieved to find Sam waiting outside. Any more visits from your Boston gentleman? He asked as they walked toward her cottage. No, thankfully. Rebecca frowned. Though he's staying at the Silver Dollar, according to my students, apparently a fancy Easterner is quite the topic of conversation. I checked on him, Sam admitted. He's paid for a week's lodging and has been asking questions all over town about you, about me, about how you came to be here. He mentioned my father's debts being settled and the house saved, Rebecca said slowly. But that's impossible. The creditors were relentless. Unless someone paid them off, Sam suggested. Someone who wants something from you. Rebecca shivered despite the warm afternoon. Richard never did anything without calculating the benefit to himself. They reached her cottage and Rebecca hesitated at the door. Would you like to come in? I should probably tell you everything about Richard and Boston. It might help make sense of this. Inside, Rebecca prepared tea while gathering her thoughts. When they were settled at her small table, she began her story. Richard and I were engaged for nearly a year before my father died. It was an advantageous match. His family has banking interests, old money. Our engagement survived my mother's death and the gradual withdrawal from society that followed, but it couldn't survive my father's financial ruin. She sipped her tea, remembering the humiliation. Richard called on me the day after the funeral. I thought he'd come to comfort me, but instead he explained that our engagement had been predicated on certain financial expectations that could no longer be met. Sam's expression darkened. Sounds like a real gentleman. Boston society operates by different rules, Rebecca said with a sad smile. Marriages are alliances as much as love matches, but yes, his timing was particularly cruel. And now he wants you back. Why? I have no idea. There's nothing left of my family's fortune or position. She set down her cup. But Richard showing up here can't be coincidence, not with everything else that's happened. Sam nodded grimly. I think it's time I had a talk with Mr. Blackwood. Be careful, Rebecca warned. Richard can be charming, but he's ruthless when he wants something. So am I, Sam said quietly, when protecting someone I care about. The simple declaration sent warmth spreading through Rebecca's chest. Their eyes met across the table, and this time the connection between them was undeniable. Sam stood abruptly. I should go find Blackwood before he causes more trouble. At the door, he turned back. Stay inside tonight, lock your doors. After he left, Rebecca moved about her small home, feeling strangely restless. Sam's words echoed in her mind, someone I care about. Did he mean it the way her heart hoped? And what would come of Richard's unexpected arrival? As darkness fell, Rebecca lit the lamps and tried to focus on preparing the next day's lessons. A knock at the door startled her. Remembering Sam's warning, she approached cautiously. Who is it? It's me, Sam's voice answered. Open up, Rebecca, there's trouble. She quickly unbolted the door to find Sam looking grim, his jaw tight with tension. What's happened? Blackwood's been asking questions all over town, specifically about Howard Matthews and why you came here. Sam stepped inside, closing the door behind him. He claims to have proof that you embezzled funds from your father's business to finance your escape west. Rebecca gasped. That's absurd. I never touched the business accounts. I know. But he's convinced Mayor Billings to call a town council meeting tomorrow to discuss your position as teacher. Sam's eyes blazed with controlled anger. He's trying to back you into a corner, Rebecca, force you to return to Boston with him. But why? What could he possibly want with me now? The pieces weren't fitting together. Sam ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I don't know yet, but there's more. I found out Blackwood arrived in Denver 3 weeks ago and has been asking questions about Silvercreek and about me ever since. Rebecca sank into a chair. 3 weeks. Then he wasn't responding to Hargrove's letter. He may have orchestrated it. That's my thinking. Sam knelt beside her chair. Rebecca, I think Blackwood might be behind everything. The Howard Matthews letters, the allegations from Boston, all of it designed to manipulate you. But how would he know about Silvercreek, about you? Rebecca's mind raced. The letters contained details only a local would know. Sam's expression hardened. Someone here helped him. Someone who knows me well enough to provide those details. The implication was chilling. Someone in this town, someone Sam trusted, had conspired with Richard to bring Rebecca here under false pretenses. What do we do? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sam took her hands in his. First, we face the town council together. I won't let them dismiss you based on Blackwood's lies. His thumbs traced gentle circles on her palms. Then we find out what Blackwood really wants and who's helping him. Rebecca drew strength from his touch, from the unwavering conviction in his blue eyes. I won't run, Sam. Whatever Richard is planning, I won't let him drive me away from the life I'm building here. Good, Sam said softly, because I don't want you to go. The simple admission hung in the air between them, filled with unspoken meaning. This time when Sam leaned closer, Rebecca met him halfway. His lips touched hers gently at first, then with growing intensity as she responded. His hand cupped her cheek, and Rebecca felt something inside her unfurl, a sense of coming home she'd never experienced before. When they finally broke apart, Sam rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that since I first saw you standing lost in the street, Rebecca laughed softly. Even when you thought I was a mail-order bride for a non-existent rancher, especially then, he admitted with a rueful smile. I was jealous of a man who didn't exist. The absurdity of it made them both laugh, easing some of the tension of the evening, but reality couldn't be held at bay for long. The council meeting is at noon tomorrow, Sam said, reluctantly moving back. I'll come for you at 11:30. I'll be ready, Rebecca promised. After Sam left, Rebecca touched her fingers to her lips, still feeling the imprint of his kiss. Whatever Richard was planning, she wouldn't face it alone. For the first time since arriving in Silvercreek, she felt certain she was exactly where she was meant to be. The next morning, Rebecca dressed with particular care in her best navy blue dress with white collar and cuffs. She arranged her hair neatly and pinned her mother's cameo at her throat, a small reminder of strength in difficult times. She had just finished when a knock came at her door. It was barely 9 o'clock, hours before Sam was due to escort her to the meeting. Cautiously, she opened the door to find a teenage boy she recognized as one of her older students. Tommy, shouldn't you be heading to school? No school today, Miss Morgan. Mayor called it off for the meeting. Tommy shifted nervously. Sheriff Tucker sent me, says you should come to his office right away. It's urgent, Rebecca frowned. Did he say why? No, madam, just that it couldn't wait. Very well, tell him I'll be there shortly. After Tommy left, Rebecca gathered her shawl and reticule. Something must have happened with Richard. Perhaps Sam had discovered who was helping him. The morning was bright but cool as Rebecca walked briskly toward the sheriff's office on the main street. The town seemed unusually quiet, with many businesses still closed. As she approached the jailhouse, she noticed the door standing slightly ajar. Sam, she called, pushing it open. The office was empty. No Sam behind the desk or in the small cell area visible through the inner door. Something felt wrong. Looking for your sheriff. Richard's voice came from behind her. Rebecca whirled to find him standing in the doorway she'd just entered, blocking her exit. Where's Sam? Tommy said he wanted to see me. Richard smiled coldly. I paid the boy to deliver that message. Tucker is currently occupied with a disturbance at the mining camp outside town, also arranged. Fear prickled along Rebecca's spine. What do you want, Richard? As I said yesterday to take you home. He stepped into the office, closing the door behind him. Though I admit I've come to appreciate the poetic justice of this situation. You, coming all this way to marry a man you'd never met, only to discover he doesn't exist. Rebecca's eyes widened. It was you sent those letters. Not personally, Richard corrected. I employed local talent for the actual correspondence. But yes, the plan was mine. But why? Why go to such elaborate lengths? Richard circled the desk, trailing his fingers across its surface. Your father left substantial debts, Rebecca debts I've now acquired. The house, the business holdings, even that cameo at your throat legally, they're all mine. Rebecca's hand flew to her mother's cameo. That's impossible. Not at all. I simply purchased the debt notes from your father's creditors. A sound investment, really, given what else Marcus Morgan left behind. My father left nothing but debts, Rebecca insisted. Richard's smile turned predatory. That's where you're wrong. Shortly before his death, your father acquired mining interests in Colorado interests that have recently proven quite valuable, but the paperwork requires your signature as his heir. He shrugged elegantly. Hence my need to find you and bring you home. Rebecca's mind raced. So you created Howard Matthews to lure me west, where I'd be stranded and vulnerable. Then you plan to rescue me with tales of resolved debts back home. It was rather brilliant, Richard agreed without modesty. Though I admit, finding you so thoroughly ensconced in this backwater town was unexpected. As was your attachment to the local lawman. His knowing tone made Rebecca flush. You've been watching me. I've had eyes on you since the day you arrived. My associate has been most informative about your developing relationship with Sheriff Tucker. Who, Rebecca demanded, who would help you with this deception? The outer door opened again, and Rebecca turned to see Deputy Mark Wilson step inside Clara Wilson's brother and Sam's right-hand man in Silvercreek. She's asking about our arrangement, Blackwood, Mark said with a smirk. Seems the schoolmarm isn't as naive as she looks. Rebecca stared at him in disbelief. But you're Sam's deputy, his friend, Mark's expression hardened. Tucker's had it too easy in this town, sheriff at 30, everyone's favorite lawman, even my sister mooning over him. He spat the words. Meanwhile, I do the real work and get none of the credit or respect. So when Mr. Blackwood approached me about helping with his little scheme, it seemed like an opportunity, Mark continued. I provided the local details for the letters, kept an eye on you, and made sure Tucker stayed in the dark. Simple. And profitable, Richard added. Deputy Wilson has been well compensated for his assistance. Rebecca felt sick. This man had betrayed not only Sam but the entire town, all for money and petty jealousy. Sam will figure this out, she said with more confidence than she felt. He already suspects someone local is involved. By then, we'll be long gone, Richard said dismissively. The morning stage leaves in an hour. We'll be on it. I'm not going anywhere with you, Rebecca declared. Richard sighed as if dealing with a difficult child. Let me be clear, Rebecca. You will sign over the mining interests, after which I might consider releasing you from your father's debts. Refuse, and not only will you face embezzlement charges in Boston, but I'll ensure your precious sheriff faces ruin as well. You can't touch Sam, Rebecca said, but doubt crept into her voice. Can't I? Richard raised an eyebrow. Deputy Wilson has provided sworn statements that Sheriff Tucker was involved in several irregular incidents missing funds from prisoner transports, evidence that disappeared from custody. It would be a shame if those statements reached the territorial governor. False accusations, Rebecca said, though she saw Mark's smirk and knew the damage such claims could do to Sam's reputation and career. True or false doesn't matter much out here, does it, Deputy? Richard said smoothly. Just the appearance of impropriety would be enough to remove the sheriff from his position. Mark nodded, clearly enjoying Rebecca's distress. Tucker's built his reputation on being incorruptible. One hint of scandal would destroy him. Rebecca felt trapped. If she refused to go with Richard, Sam would pay the price. If she went, she might save him, but would lose everything else, including the man she was starting to love. I need time to think, she said, trying to sound calmer than she felt. The stage waits for no one, Richard said coldly. Decide now, Rebecca. Come quietly or watch your sheriff's career and reputation burn. Before Rebecca could respond, the door burst open and Sam himself stood there, his expression thunderous as he took in the scene. Step away from her, Blackwood, he ordered, his hand hovering near his gun. Richard's composure slipped momentarily before he recovered with a tight smile. Sheriff Tucker, how disappointing. You were supposed to be occupied with trouble at the mines. Your hired troublemakers weren't very convincing, Sam replied, his eyes shifting to Mark with undisguised contempt. And they were quite willing to name who paid them when I asked firmly enough. Mark edged away from Sam, his hand moving toward the gun at his hip. Tucker, this isn't what it looks like. It looks like conspiracy, fraud, and betrayal, Sam said evenly. Don't make it worse by drawing on me, Mark. The deputy hesitated, clearly calculating his chances. Rebecca held her breath, terrified of what might happen. Nobody needs to get hurt, Richard interjected smoothly. This is a simple business matter between Miss Morgan and myself. Sam's gaze never left Mark as he replied, There's nothing simple about luring a woman across the country under false pretenses, threatening her with fabricated criminal charges, and attempting to blackmail her with lies about a lawman. Mark's hand inched closer to his gun. You always think you're better than everyone, Tucker, The perfect sheriff, the town hero. I never claimed to be perfect, Sam said quietly, but I don't betray my badge or the people who trust me. With startling speed, Mark drew his gun. Before he could aim, Sam's weapon was already out and a single shot echoed in the small office. Mark cried out, his gun clattering to the floor as he clutched his bleeding shoulder. In the moment of confusion, Richard lunged for Rebecca, grabbing her arm. This changes nothing. You're still coming with me. Rebecca wrenched free with a strength born of fury. I'm not going anywhere with you, Richard, not now, not ever. Sam kicked Mark's fallen gun away and kept his own trained on the wounded deputy. It's over, Blackwood. Mayor Billings and Reverend Porter heard everything. They're right outside. As if on cue, the two men entered, followed by several other townspeople who had been drawn by the gunshot. Mark Wilson, you're under arrest for conspiracy and attempted assault on an officer, Sam announced formally, though his eyes were on Richard. And Mr. Blackwood, you're facing charges of fraud, coercion, and attempted kidnapping. Richard's confident facade crumbled. You can't arrest me. Do you know who I am in Boston? This isn't Boston, Sam replied simply. Mayor, would you fetch Dr. Simmons for Mark, and perhaps you could take Mr. Blackwood's statement while I secure the prisoners. As the mayor let a shell shocked Richard away, Sam quickly handcuffed Mark and helped him to a cell, returning moments later to Rebecca's side. Are you all right? He asked softly, his eyes searching her face. I am now, she replied, fighting the urge to throw herself into his arms in front of half the town. How did you know? Tommy has a conscience. After delivering Blackwood's message, he came to find me at the mines, said something felt wrong. Sam's mouth quirked. Smart boy. I'll have to remember that when school grades come out. Rebecca laughed, relief making her light-headed. Sam, Richard said something about mining interests my father owned. Is that possible? We'll sort it out, Sam promised. But whatever the truth, you're not facing it alone. The next few hours passed in a blur as statements were taken, and telegrams sent to Denver about the conspiracy. Dr. Simmons treated Mark's shoulder, declaring it a clean wound that would heal with time, though his pride might take longer. The doctor added with a disapproving glance at the disgraced deputy. By evening, the town was buzzing with the tale of the Boston gentleman's elaborate scheme and the schoolteacher who had refused to be manipulated. When Sam finally walked Rebecca home, the sun was setting in a blaze of orange and purple over the western mountains. The town council wants to formally apologize to you tomorrow, Sam told her as they reached her cottage. Seems they're mortified at having doubted our dedicated and courageous teacher, to quote Reverend Porter. Rebecca smiled tiredly. That's kind of them. Though I'm still not certain about these mining interests Richard mentioned. I sent telegrams to Denver and Boston. We'll know more soon. Sam hesitated. Whatever happens with that, your position here is secure. The children need you. Rebecca looked up at him, gathering her courage. And what about you, Sheriff Tucker? Do you need me too? Sam's expression softened and he reached for her hand. More than I ever thought possible. When I saw Blackwood threatening you today, I realized how quickly you've become essential to my life, even though I arrived under false pretenses. She asked with a small smile, especially because of that, Sam replied, drawing her closer. If not for Blackwood's scheme, we might never have met, and despite everything, I can't regret that. Rebecca's heart felt too full for words. Instead, she rose on tiptoe and pressed her lips to his, pouring all her emotions into the kiss. Sam responded instantly, his arms encircling her waist and lifting her slightly off the ground. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Sam rested his forehead against hers. I'm falling in love with you, Rebecca Morgan. I think I have been since you stepped off that stage looking lost and determined all at once. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered, marveling at how right the words felt. Though I never imagined finding love with a sheriff in a town I'd never heard of 3 months ago, Sam chuckled. Life has a way of surprising us, speaking of which. He stepped back slightly, reaching into his pocket. I found this among Mark's things. He handed her a folded paper. Rebecca opened it to find a letter addressed to Howard Matthews in her handwriting. My first letter responding to the advertisement, she breathed. You were right, they kept everything. There's something else. Sam looked suddenly nervous. That day you arrived, when I told you Howard Matthews didn't exist, I wasn't entirely truthful. Rebecca frowned. What do you mean? Howard is my middle name. My mother's maiden name, actually, and Matthews was my grandfather's name. He smiled sheepishly. So in a way, Howard Matthews does exist. He's part of me. Rebecca stared at him, then laughed with delighted disbelief. Are you saying that when Richard and Mark created their fictional rancher, they accidentally named him after you? Seems that way. Mark knew my full name from official documents. Sam shook his head. Strangest coincidence I've ever encountered. Or fate, Rebecca suggested softly. Sam's eyes held hers. I prefer to think of it that way. He cupped her cheek gently. They told you you'd marry a man you'd never met. Rebecca smiled, completing the thought. But the cowboy said you've met me. Not a cowboy anymore, Sam corrected, but once upon a time. Close enough, Rebecca whispered and stood on tiptoe to kiss him again. 3 months later, on a crisp January morning in 1880, Rebecca stood before the mirror in Sarah's guest room, hardly recognizing the radiant woman who looked back at her. Her wedding dress, a creation of ivory silk that Clara Wilson had helped design, caught the winter sunlight streaming through the window. You look beautiful, Sarah said, adjusting the small wreath of winter flowers in Rebecca's hair. Sam won't know what hit him. Rebecca laughed, happiness bubbling through her. I still can't believe how everything turned out. Indeed, the months since Richard's arrest had brought one surprise after another. The mining interests had proven real. A small but profitable silver claim her father had acquired shortly before his death. With Sam's help, Rebecca had navigated the legal complexities, using part of the proceeds to pay off her father's legitimate debts and setting aside the rest for the future. Richard and Mark had both faced justice. Richard sentenced to 3 years in a territorial prison for fraud and attempted kidnapping, Mark to 18 months for his role in the conspiracy. Clara Wilson had been mortified by her brother's actions, but Rebecca had assured her that no one blamed her for Mark's choices. Most importantly, Rebecca had continued teaching, building a life in Silvercreek that felt more real and satisfying than anything she'd known in Boston. And through it all, her relationship with Sam had deepened into a love neither had expected but both treasured. A knock at the door interrupted her reflections. Mayor Billings poked his head in, beaming. It's time, Miss Morgan. Everyone's waiting at the church. Rebecca had asked the mayor to give her away, having no family of her own. He had accepted with tearful pride, declaring it the greatest honor of my public service. The small church was filled to capacity with seemingly every resident of Silvercreek. Children from the school scattered flower petals as Rebecca walked down the aisle to where Sam waited, looking handsome and slightly nervous in his best suit. When she reached him, he took her hands, his eyes never leaving hers. You're beautiful, he whispered. Reverend Porter conducted the ceremony with unexpected warmth, speaking eloquently of love born in unusual circumstances and faith rewarded. When it came time for the vows, Sam's voice rang clear and certain. I, Samuel Howard Tucker, take thee, Rebecca Morgan, to be my lawfully wedded wife. Rebecca's heart swelled as she repeated her own vows, remembering the strange journey that had brought her to this moment. A deception turned to blessing. A false start transformed into the truest beginning she could imagine. After the ceremony, the entire town celebrated at the hotel, with music and dancing lasting well into the evening. As Sam twirled her around the floor, Rebecca caught glimpses of their future in his eyes, a life built on trust and love, children who would grow up knowing both parents' strength, years of partnership through whatever challenges came their way. Happy, Mrs. Tucker? Sam asked, pulling her close as the music slowed. Completely, she answered, resting her head against his shoulder. Though I still can't help wondering at the strange twist of fate that brought me here. Sam smiled, pressing a kiss to her temple. You came looking for Howard Matthews, a man you'd never met. Rebecca looked up at her husband, love overflowing, and found you instead, the man I was always meant to find. As snow began to fall gently outside, casting a soft white blanket over Silvercreek, Sam led his bride in another dance, surrounded by the community that had become their family. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, the schoolteacher from Boston and the sheriff who had captured her heart in the wild Colorado territory. 10 years later, in the summer of 1890, Rebecca sat on the wide porch of the Tucker Ranch house, watching her children play in the yard. 8-year-old Matthew chased his 6-year-old sister Emma with a stick horse, both of them laughing as they circled the oak tree Sam had planted the day after their wedding. The house was larger now. Sam had added rooms as their family grew, but still retained the cozy warmth that had made it a home from the beginning. After 5 years as sheriff, Sam had retired his badge to focus on the small cattle ranch they'd built with Rebecca's mining proceeds. The change had suited him, allowing more time with his family while still commanding respect in a community that valued his wisdom and fairness. Rebecca continued teaching, though now only 3 days a week, sharing duties with a younger teacher who had arrived from Denver 2 years earlier. Her school had grown along with Silvercreek, which now boasted a railroad spur, a small library Rebecca had helped establish, and even a photographer's studio. "Penny for your thoughts," Sam said, settling into the rocking chair beside her. At 42, his hair showed touches of silver at the temples, but his blue eyes were as vibrant as ever, crinkling at the corners when he smiled. "Just counting blessings," Rebecca replied, reaching for his hand. "Did you finish mending the corral fence? All done?" With considerable help from young Benjamin Wilson, Clara's oldest son had become a fixture at the ranch, eager to learn ranching skills from the man he idolized. Rebecca smiled. "Clara mentioned he talks of nothing else at home. He's a good worker. Reminds me a bit of myself at that age, eager to prove himself." Their conversation paused as Emma ran to the porch, breathless with excitement. "Papa, Ryder coming?" Sam stood, shading his eyes against the late afternoon sun. "Looks like Joe Baker from the telegraph office. Wonder what brings him out this way." The messenger arrived in a cloud of dust, waving a yellow paper. "Got an urgent wire for Mrs. Tucker, from Boston." Rebecca accepted the telegram with a puzzled frown. Her connections to Boston had dwindled over the years, with only occasional correspondence from old school friends. She read it quickly, her expression changing from confusion to shock. "It's from Mr. Hargrove's son. The old solicitor passed away last month, and his son found some papers while settling the estate. My father had investments we never knew about, substantial ones that have been gathering interest all these years." Sam whistled softly. "After all this time, how substantial?" Rebecca looked up, her eyes wide. "Enough to send all 3 children to college if they wish, enough to expand the ranch considerably, enough to—" She paused, a smile spreading across her face. "Enough to build Silvercreek the proper schoolhouse I've been dreaming of." Sam laughed, pulling her into a hug. "The town council will name it after you, you know." "Nonsense. If they name it after anyone, it should be us both." Rebecca leaned against her husband's solid strength. "Everything good in my life has come from our partnership." Later that evening, after the children were asleep, Rebecca and Sam sat on the porch watching fireflies rise from the meadow beyond their yard. The moon hung low and full over the mountains, silvering the landscape they both loved. "I've been thinking," Sam said, his voice thoughtful in the darkness, "about the day you arrived in Silvercreek." Rebecca smiled. "A terrified Boston girl with inappropriate shoes and a letter from a man who didn't exist." "Who did exist, in a way," Sam corrected with a chuckle. "Just not as you expected." "No," Rebecca agreed softly. "Much better than I expected." Sam took her hand, his thumb tracing the wedding band he'd placed there a decade ago. "Do you remember what I said to you that day, when you asked if I knew Howard Matthews?" Rebecca nodded, the memory clear despite the passing years. "You said you knew him better than most. I thought you meant you knew about the deception." "I didn't," Sam admitted. "Not then. But looking back, it seems almost like something was guiding us together, using my own names, bringing you all that way." "Providence," Rebecca suggested, "or just extraordinarily good fortune." Sam lifted her hand to his lips. "Either way, I'm grateful every day that you stepped off that stage looking for a man you'd never met." Rebecca leaned her head against his shoulder, contentment warming her more than the summer night. "And found you instead, the only man I was ever meant to find." As the stars emerged above the Colorado mountains, Rebecca thought of the long, winding path that had led her to this life, the sorrows and joys, the deceptions and truths, the love that had blossomed in the most unexpected of circumstances. Whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, she would meet them with Sam beside her, their family around them, and the knowledge that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with a single, mistaken step.